So when someone makes comments to me about tattoos being unbiblical or worse, they're judging someone for having them, I typically respond by saying, I assume you're referring to Leviticus 19:28. But can you tell me what the verse right before that says? Or better yet, are you following that verse yourself?
Welcome to the Bent Christian Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bent Christian Podcast. We are a community of imperfect believers committed to sharing the message of faith, hope, and love through prayer, resources, and testimonies. Our mission is to reach everyone, everywhere, every day as we explore topics that matter to Christians today. I am your host, Cliff Sweazey, and today we're going to talk about a topic that has sparked a lot of debates within the Christian community. Tattoos. Are they sinful? Are they permissible? And what does the Bible actually say about them? This came up again recently because I was on a Facebook town chatter page. It's a site. People are actually terrible with each other on this site. But there was a young lady that was saying she would like to start going to church and was asking for recommendations for churches that would not judge her for having tattoos. And man, that cut through me like a knife. Partially because I've had this conversation so many times in the past. But more importantly, I thought, how sad is it that she even had to think about that before going to a church? And that just broke my heart. Because, it's a church where they teach about love and grace and understanding and acceptance. But more on that later. You get the point. We might as well start with a verse that always comes up when discussing tattoos, and that's Leviticus 19:28. Do not cut your bodies for the dead or put tattoo marks on yourselves. I am the Lord. This seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it? But as with any Bible verse, context is crucial. See, Leviticus 19 is part of the Mosaic Law given to the Israelites, and this law included a wide array of instructions, from dietary restrictions to rules about clothing. The specific command about tattoos was actually addressing practices common among pagan cultures at that time. See, they would cut and mark their bodies as part of rituals to honor the dead or their gods. God called the Israelites to be set apart from these practices. But here's where it gets interesting. The Mosaic Law was fulfilled through Jesus Christ. Romans 10:4 tells us that Christ is the culmination of the law. So there may be righteousness for anyone who believes. As a New Testament believer, we no longer are under the Mosaic Law. So doesn't that mean tattoos are fair game now? Well, not so fast. Like so often in the Bible, there can be some confusion, and no worries, that's exactly why we exist. While Mosaic law is no longer binding, the principle of honoring God with our bodies remains. 1 Corinthians 6:19 through 20 reminds us, do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price, and therefore honor God with your bodies. So this clearly calls for some discernment. Tattoos are a form of expression, and for many people, they carry deep personal or even spiritual significance. For example, some Christians choose tattoos of Bible verses, crosses, or symbols of faith. These can serve as testimonies or reminders of God's presence in their lives. But it's essential to ask ourselves, what is my motive? Is this decision glorifying to God, or is it rooted in something else, like a rebellion or vanity? Another factor is to consider the cultural context. In some cultures, tattoos might carry negative connotations or be associated with certain lifestyles. But as Christians, we're called to be mindful of how our actions might influence others. Romans 14:13 says, therefore let us stop passing judgment on one another. Instead, make up your mind not to put any stumbling block or obstacle in the way of a brother or sister. So where does that leave us? The Bible doesn't give a clear-cut answer about tattoos for Christians today. What it gives us is wisdom and principles to guide our decisions. And here are some questions to reflect on. Does this tattoo honor God? What is my motive for getting it? Could it cause someone else to stumble in their faith? Have I prayed or sought godly counsel about this decision? So, with all that being said, how do my conversations normally go around tattoos? Well, actually, I found a pretty easy way to end the conversation quickly. When someone makes comments to me about tattoos being unbiblical or worse, judges someone for having them, I typically respond by saying something like, I assume you're referring to Leviticus 19:28, but can you tell me the verse right before that, what that says? Better yet, are you following that verse yourself? See, Leviticus 19:27, the verse immediately before the tattoo verse, says, do not cut your hair at the sides of your head or clip off edges of your beard. Few today would consider grooming choices a moral issue, yet these practices were prohibited in the same context. Additionally, Leviticus 19 contains all kinds of other laws, such as prohibitions against wearing mixed fabrics or eating certain foods, practices that most Christians don't follow today. This inconsistency often highlights a selective approach to applying those Old Testament laws. It's wrong. And it's one of the many reasons that people get turned off by religion today. See, as Christians, we're no longer under the old covenant, but the new covenant that was established by Christ. As read in Galatians and Romans, Jesus fulfilled the law, and now our focus is on living out the principles of love and grace and truth. So the real question about tattoos should not be whether they violate Old Testament law, but do they glorify God? Tattoos can be meaningful expressions of faith or testimonies or personal reminders of God's work in our lives, and it's ultimately a matter of personal conviction and conscience before the Lord. So when addressing the topic of tattoos, let's encourage each other to approach it with grace and understanding and love rather than judgment. After all, our primary call is it isn't our primary call to reflect Christ's love, not to get caught up in our outward appearances. As Christians, we're called to show love and acceptance, and if we're not doing at least that, then we have much bigger problems. This principle is central to the teachings of Jesus Christ. In John 13, Jesus says, "A new commandment I give you, love one another, as I have loved you, and by this everyone will know that you are my disciples." This love is not limited to those that share our beliefs or values. It extends to everyone, reflecting God's unconditional love for humanity. Acceptance doesn't mean agreeing with everything someone does or believes. It means showing respect, kindness, and compassion regardless of differences. It creates opportunities for connection, understanding, and sharing the truth and love. In a world that is full of division and division is so prevalent, embodying love and acceptance demonstrates the transformative power of Christ in us, and it invites others to experience His grace and truth. At the end of the day, the tattoo controversy in the Bible isn't about ink on our skin. It's about the condition of our hearts. And whether you already have tattoos or you're trying to decide whether to get one or not, let your decision be rooted in your relationship with God and your desire to honor Him. Focus on loving God and loving each other. It's that simple, guys. That's all I have for you today. As always, I want to thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Spotify, all at Bent Christian. Share your thoughts and testimonies with us. We'd sure love to hear them from you. Until next time, stay bent. God bless.